protect a brand, you should not lock it down. A big shift is starting our innovations, not from a PowerPoint slide talking about white spaces, but observed behaviors.
Hello, Laura. How are you?
I'm great. How are you doing?
Yeah, very well, thank you. Thrilled to be here today for this interview. We've had some more success with sliding into the DMs of important marketers.
Just keep at it, and one day they'll have to say yes.
Yeah, absolutely brilliant. You've managed to convince Nathalia Amadeu, the global brand director for Vaseline at Unilever, to come on today to talk about the Vaseline Verified campaign, which I'm sure a lot of our listeners will have heard about in terms of the communications platform it provided to Vaseline and all of the Cannes awards that they won last year on the back of it. But she's here today to talk about 2.0, isn't she?
Indeed. It was really exciting last year at Advertising Week Europe to hear the Vaseline team talking about this. And this was before Cannes. They were kind of gearing up. And I think it felt really bold and exciting. You know, we talked a bit about how it felt like a big swing and was it going to pay off? And I think 13 Cannes Lions later, yes, it definitely has. So we're very excited to hear about what's next. And I think it'll be a very thought-provoking and generous-spirited interview if it's anything like the brand.
Let's get into it. So welcome, Nathalia, to the Persuasion Game. Great to have you with us today.
Thank you. It's a pleasure to be here with you.
It's a little full circle moment for us because this time last year, we were hearing all about Vaseline Verified at Advertising Week Europe. And ever since then, you've been on our watch list.
So we're here today to talk a bit about Vaseline Verified, but also about how that's developed and gone further as the year has kind of gone on. Before we dive straight in, would it be okay for our listeners if you were to just give us a top line about like Vaseline Verified, like where it came from, maybe share some of like the success that it's had to now. And then we'd love to talk about how it's become much bigger and how that's kind of pushed on and become something that, you know, is really about how brands are being built now at Unilever in this kind of new social first way.
Well, I think Vaseline Verified started from a very simple idea that became this proof of principle of how we do marketing at Vaseline, Unilever, and I guess it has influenced the industry too. It started from a very humble jelly created in 1870 that became this lighthouse in the sea, in the chaotic sea of TikTok hacks. A brand that has been out there for so many years. We had this obsession of turning it into a social first and shaking off the dust while evolving the trust. And when we tried to understand what social first meant, we realized that we had to stop talking to start listening more, right? And when we started listening more, we faced more than 3.5 million social posts, organic social posts of people sharing their own inventions of how to use our product their way. The most frequent comment among those posts was, "Does it work? Is it real?" Almost shouting and inviting the brand to engage. As a brand backed on science for over a century, we felt the responsibility because at the same time, there were incredible, very creative ways of using Vaseline. There were some ideas that also posed some harm and danger to them. So we decided to fact check the user claims. We took the hacks to our labs. We dispelled harmful myths, brought them back to culture, and through that, we really unlocked even more brand love, even more authenticity and trust. And Vaseline Verified became more than a campaign. It turned to be a platform for us.
I guess one question I had is I was actually just listening to the Fernando Fernandez interview with JP Morgan, and he talks a lot about building desire at scale and the kind of SASE framework. This is really a brilliant example, isn't it, of like leaning into that new way of approaching brand building.
I think the brands matter more when they understand their role in people's lives, not only in the category. It's impossible for you to keep evolving and growing without your communities. They have the best stories to tell about your brands, even more than we do, right? When they have shared their inventions, they have shared ideas we as a brand could have never breathed or designed for or even imagined. And I think this sense of how we build desire at scale is a way to really steward our communities and serve them. It's more coming from them than the brand.
It's quite interesting to hear your language here, because you talk about service and people having better ideas than you do. And this is a brand that's in 1.5 billion households. So it could be quite easy to be like, well, we're built on something, we do know what we're doing. But actually it feels like you're very much handing the reins over with trust. And you talk about stewardship rather than kind of ownership. Can you talk a bit more about that shift in thinking? Like what had to switch on within your brand team and perhaps within the organization to think differently?
I think the social first transformation we have gone through, this obsession that I mentioned, that I know many brand developers that are listening to us today have experienced too, made us really pay attention to how people were using our product, what they were talking about our product. And the more attention we paid, more things we discovered that were quite uncomfortable but powerful. We realized the brand had been reinterpreted already, repurposed, reinvented millions of times without us. Consumers were not asking for permission, right? They were solving their problems in beauty, in health, in everyday hacks, in ways we, as I mentioned, like we could have never imagined. Ownership at that point feels like a friction. If a brand is being used in more than 1.5 billion households across different cultures, different climates, different contexts, its meaning is no longer defined by a marketing plan. It's defined in real life. For me, the shift from looking at our penetration, not as ownership, but as stewardship, was unavoidable. If we really stayed still, if we didn't listen, we were taking the risk of getting irrelevant to the ways people were using us. And I think that was the biggest shift of all, how we really decided to catch up with reality. And by that, we really unlocked this authenticity and even more trust.
I think the comms campaign is brilliant. I think we've sort of established that bringing people in, joining the conversation, it's just a brilliant example of like really making the brand everyone's. But you went one step further, didn't you? It wasn't just sharing communications with these people. You've actually now brought them into developing products with you, haven't you? Which I think is really quite interesting. Do you want to share a bit more about how you've done that and kind of how that's worked?
I think Vaseline Verified helped us see the creators and our communities as co-authors of our stories. We say we have co-founded this brand through the hands of those who love it and use it. And that is not just for marketing, that is not just for campaigns. That affects the way we innovate as well, right? When we call them to be co-founders or co-authors of our stories, we are also talking about the future of Vaseline. So we decided to look at the creators not just as amplifiers or media channels, but participants of our brand development, right? I think the evolution of Verified is indeed the launch of new products inspired by the hacks coming from the communities, by observing the behaviors that we see there and serving them. We had to understand if we really wanted to take them as co-founders and co-authors, we had to listen and also prioritize their agenda while we did prioritize ours. So that's the evolution really, and that's where we are right now. Vaseline Verified brings then new applicators, new formats, new ways to use our product. That mostly important, even before it reached our labs, had been verified by the communities.
And you were saying it's not just about sort of magpieing different ideas. You've really worked to try and find who are the originators of the ideas, who was the original sort of test case of this person, and kind of bring them in on the journey. Can you tell us a bit more about why that's important to you?
Yes, I think in the social world, it's not rare to see ideas being stolen,
lifted,
right?
Yeah.
Shared. It's the nature of the social media. But at the same time, we feel some of the creators who usually come up first feel quite frustrated for not having the recognition of their creativity. So this year we decided to go after the originators. We have truly mapped and tracked down them on the internet across the globe, trying to see where this trend, this crazy 3 million posts started. And we have found some of them. We are still looking for more because there are so many hacks out there. We have started with some of the most viral hacks, some of the beauty hacks. We have found actually a creator in the US, one of the first posts that we could find sharing a beauty hack on how to use Vaseline jelly as a makeup primer. And that was genius. It was even in a blog before social media even existed.
A Tumblr somewhere.
Yes, somewhere. And we reached out to them to reward them for their creativity and for their contribution to this beauty world and how they sparkle in this explosion. And we invited them to co-create these products with us. We invited them to be even more influential in the beauty world. For us, this is the commitment we have with our communities, really to give them the space for the creativity to shine, while, of course, we grow together. For me, it's very important that the brand grows with the community.
What I love about all of this is, like, we mentioned earlier the 1.5 billion households. That's kind of a penetration ceiling for most brands, right? I mean, beyond the wildest dreams of many brands. But what I love about this is all of the stuff you're doing is really reinforcing the usage occasions, trying to come up with new products for new occasions, for new ways of just getting people that already have the product to just use it much, much more. And this social kind of first approach is really helping you kind of deliver on that, isn't it?
I think that was a big unlock. When we reached the ceiling and we felt, okay, we've got what we could now. It's just like some could have just looked for maintenance. We broke the walls, right? I think Vaseline Verified made us realize skincare was just a continent in the Vaseline world.
Yes.
Made us realize that actually our briefings were limiting us. Because people were already using us in different situations, in different moments that we had never considered before. And that, more than that, represented business opportunities.
Yeah.
Right? I think Vaseline Verified unlocked doors even for our commercial footprint, the purpose people buy Vaseline, and also the words we start appearing. When we let this control of our own narratives, our creators started taking us to, words we had never engaged before.
Yeah. Fashion,
Sports, foods, pop culture.
Mm-hmm.
When we leave meetings with our stakeholders, our investors, they feel even more encouraged and optimistic about the future of a centenary brand.
So it became like a multi-category approach then. It's the category expansion wasn't just about how we're going to grow in skincare. It's like, how can we access all of these other ways that people are using this brand and be there in the right places for them in those moments that they want it?
Absolutely. You know, one thing that really excites me was the discovery of a nickname the brand has among their communities, which is the Wonder Jelly.
Mm.
And I try to understand why is that, right? One of the reasons I understood was the versatility of Vaseline, the miraculous healing power of Vaseline too. But that really made us open our eyes and to rethink actually our business and understanding the category we operate might not be skincare, but might be the wonder category.
What's so interesting about that, though, is for 150 odd years, you've kind of been established in a different way. And I can imagine that there was a lot of excitement from stakeholders, but also the way you're physically set up in the business is probably around the world of skin. So different stakeholders, R&D development, all of those kind of things were probably finding it a bit more of a surprise and having to adjust thinking a bit more. How do you balance that idea of sort of risk and opportunity? And how did you get people bought into this more expansive view of what you could be?
I believe, Laura, that to protect a brand, you should not lock it down. You anchor it. I like this idea of some things you fix, some things you flex. So for us, there are some non-negotiables that nobody can touch. And this is absolute what we fix, which is safety, efficacy, and trust. All the rest, culture, usage, context, are allowed to evolve. And I think at Unilever, we have a framework that is called the Brandverse, which help us give guidance on some guardrails of what Vaseline stands for, while giving room for the creator's authenticity to shine. That truly helps because we know how we show up and how we engage. And at the same time, it helps us giving the reassurance that we have the right to play. But that does not mean that internally is easy or with no friction.
Robust conversations.
Yes, very robust, very heated conversations. I think actually internally it has challenged decades of brand control thinking.
Yeah.
Right? It has been an internal debate. It has been actually a big internal learning curve too as we let it go. But more, I think the unlock was showing to the leadership and the whole organization that it was not just about let go, but it was really the importance of getting back to the game that we were late, right?
Yes, that's really striking about what you said just now. And you're like, this has already happened. You know, we can't close the barn door. We need to get into the game now. Do you think it's easier to do so with a brand that has quite sort of humble, down-to-earth origins that is really about being for everyone than perhaps brands who are used to a narrative of being a bit more sort of elite or aspirational? Do you think there was actually a strength in being that ubiquitous brand that kind of had to listen to people?
I wouldn't say a humble brand because Vaseline has so much power.
Mm-hmm. That's true.
And the way we are leaders in this category too, it could feel quite the opposite. Mm-hmm. We know how to do it, mm-hmm. right? And I think this is valid for all the brands. I think what drives our decisions is really the relationship we have with our consumers. Any brand can opt for that if they have the intimacy with their people, with their communities, right? Because then they have this space to advance and also the space to give away. And this is a new way of thinking marketing today, right? This, for me, is really the manifesto of the future of marketing, as we call it, the co-participatory brand building, right? You need to understand you are not the sole voice in it.
When you say it like that, it's no different to what we've been doing for years and years and years. It's just the circuit loops, the feedback loops are much, much quicker now. You know, you can see, you can get instant response, get an instant ideas of feedback back, and then go again and kind of share and kind of build in a much more like iterative, continuous, rather than the long phase of like insight followed by long phase of R&D and product development, long phase of launch, long phase of insight. It's just really shortened it up quite a lot, hasn't it?
I agree. I couldn't agree more. The fundamentals haven't changed, but the ways of doing it, yes. We see now the creators as an extension of our brand, right? As almost a sensors that could surface community insights in real time.
They're almost like a micro retail partner.
They are.
You know, feedback from you know, people that are buying the products, and then ideas for what product launches might work for the audience, and that kind of that loop.
And the speed and agility it requires is really game changing. Exactly 1 year ago, I remember when we were starting with Verified and doing our social listening homework, we noticed Vaseline being mentioned and emerging from some conversations around hay fever. People sharing their symptoms and their suffering, and some recommending Vaseline hack. And when we saw that repeatedly, I felt quite thrilled, because I said, if that is true, half of my spring issues are solved. And second, I felt really surprised, and I immediately called R&D, our verifiers team, and I asked, is it true? Does it really work? Is it verified? And when they came back to me with the confirmation that not only is it verified, but also even recognized by NHS, I immediately called the UK team and said, guys, we need to
get out there. Yeah.
But don't produce anything.
Yeah.
Just amplify what people are saying.
Yeah.
Boost what, is already out there.
I really thought it was just me that did that, by the way.
What's the hack?
You put Vaseline around the inside of your nose, and it stops
during
you
hay fever
during hay
season.
fever. I also do it on flights. Maybe you can ask your team about that to
That's
stop getting sick.
To verify. But how can we unlock that as a commercial opportunity?
Mm-hmm.
How can we ensure people will buy Vaseline for that? Call the customers, jump on the antihistamine aisle, go, but like,
follow
in a
through.
week, because we are at the peak of the season right now.
Yeah.
And by doing that, we simply double the volume in store. And imagine the impact that has in supply chain, customer sales. So the speed, this requires us to build a system that responds in hours or days, not in quarters, is incredible, critical.
I wanted to ask you about that listening piece. You said it was like a sea of content. There is so much there. And I think what your brand has been incredible at is determining the kind of signals from the noise, like really linking back to things that have a kind of enduring cultural resonance. It doesn't feel faddy, the stuff that you're doing. What is your process for actually finding those kind of enduring things that feel like a platform you can build on over time versus the kind of flash in a pan ideas?
There are 3 main elements we look for to establish like it's worth betting on, right? One is the repetition of that, right? How we see this going through communities is not just one viral spike. The other is how people adapt to that. You see people remixing, communities remixing the same for different needs. And the third is the perseverance of the content. A trend is like a moment. But an insight is a behavior. If it lasts a week, it's just entertainment. But if it keeps evolving, then it's utility. And then we are in.
And it's such a good fit with the brand as well, as you say, like utility, something people are actually going to find relevant to their lives every day. It's a nice way of linking back to actual brand purpose as well, isn't it?
Absolutely. For us, there's nothing more purposeful than being useful. That is why it becomes a social currency, right? Because people knows this is really valuable for others. It's not just entertainment. And then it spreads. It is crazy, really, the amount of countries that have come back to us talking about hacks without us even deploying the campaign there, because when it's authentic and real and useful, social media does the heavy
It does the heavy lifting, yes.
And the stories travel globally. And this is what has happened with Verified. I think it's really the empowerment of the communities and how they take their stories further.
And you've actually brought some of the products with you today, haven't you? Can we have a look at some of them?
Yes, please do.
Let's talk about this one as an insight, because as a child of the noughties, eyebrows were not really a thing, and now we're desperately all trying to grow them back. I absolutely love this product. So we've got something where you smooth it on one end and you brush it on the other. What was the origin of this? Because this feels like such an obvious one to go for Vaseline, but I just wouldn't have thought of it.
You thank the creators, not me.
I
will. But this is indeed like it's giving the space to the community to create. And we notice people using our jelly and taking brushes, and just trying to apply to tame their brows. Okay, there's a need here that is not so explicitly set. But when we feel more intimate to the consumers using that, we understand. And the idea actually is the evolution of the hacks becoming products, same product, but a better applicator, a better experience coming completely from the communities.
Natalia's going to have a hard time getting this out of the record because I'm definitely going to try and put it in my pocket. It's so funny because I used to use this and then I always found a problem with the shininess level that you got from doing this. So it's like you've really closely observed the pain points in the usage as well, not just gone, oh, we could just start saying it's for eyebrows. You've actually thought about the usage occasion and really like detailed what the solution could be, which is super cool.
Laura, I think a big shift in Vaseline is starting our innovations, not from a PowerPoint slide talking about white spaces, right? But observed behaviors. This is observed behaviors. And this is the space the community has to really bring what they want. We had to deprioritize our calendar, our own agenda to give space for theirs. And this is what we are doing now with the verified innovations when we bring the hacks to new formats.
What I love about this is, even from when God was a boy and I was at Unilever and there were videos of like consumer usage, there was always so much richness around how people use products and like really close observation. But what it feels like now is that is not just seen as validating. It's like an actual tool to springboard from and, is as important. And it kind of gives a more democratic role to everybody. Wherever an insight comes from, that's where it's valuable because it's in service of the consumer rather than in service of like a hierarchy of, as you say, PowerPoint.
And not only that, it's not just like giving space for them to have a voice, but also rewarding them for their contribution, right? I think in Verified, there's this commitment we have to truly unlock what we call the creator economy, right? It's not just recognizing or liking their work, their contribution, but making them feel seen, show them that their creativity matters. The creators of those hacks, the co-creators of those products are actually getting even part of the sales of those products, because we believe this is really rewarding and unlocking the communities. Their growth is important for our growth.
One thing I love from the Verified video, the trailer of like the success of it, was just all those people like so pleased when they got their thing verified. Like in their social posts, they were like really like happy about it. I can only imagine what it's like now when the products turn up on shelf and they've got the verified, so cool, the verified stamp on them as well. Like there must be such a real kind of, you know, I guess infectiousness in the kind of social world about people that also want to get their products built and recognised.
What have you got in your hand there?
Yeah, what is this one then? It's a all-in-one primer and highlighter jelly. I'm not going to pretend to know what that does.
It's not the nipple protector then.
Well, it could be.
Whatever you want it to be.
Yes, but this one actually came from another beauty hack. We saw people using our jelly as a makeup primer, just to smooth their skin, to ensure the grip of the makeup. And even after all, as they wanted to highlight, to have some highlights and some shine, we said, okay, there's an opportunity to deliver the same in a more convenient way that people can carry in their bags in a way that is more relevant to them. So they came up with the ideas too of these applicators. I think the ultimate way that Vaseline Verified may make us behave is understanding that the brand gets better the more people shape it.
I love that, because it always used to be like almost a sense of compromise. Like if you want to get the benefit, you have to use it in this slightly tricky way, or you have to accept that it's, you know, you need to go and wash your hands afterwards or something like that. And actually for the brand to say, no, you know, it's in your hands and we'll create something that's better for you. It feels quite generous as a principle. And that seems to be quite a striking theme that you've talked about, like intimacy, generosity. It's quite an interesting way for a very established and, as you say, very powerful brand to talk.
I think it's important for a brand to become stewards, right? More than owners, is to understand it's no longer about owning the message or how you should do that, right? It's about earning participation. It's really being relevant, ensuring you are still relevant to them. And I feel it's important for the marketing teams, for the brand developers, to change this role of creators, inventors, to redistribute this authorship somehow.
I mean, I noticed on the boxes there, you've got the Vaseline Verified tick. Is this now the predominant part of the innovation funnel, Vaseline Verified, or is it a section of it, and you also have, you know, innovation from the old model coming through as well? Or I'm just interested to know what the kind of balance is here between the two types of, or two different ways you're innovating.
Vaseline Verified has evolved to the position of our brand. Our new tagline is, if it's Vaseline, it's verified. Right?
I love it.
Yeah.
So yes, it's about validating the creativity of the communities, but also ensuring that everything we deliver, it's verified. It has the results. It has the 3 compromises that we mentioned at the beginning, right? The safety, the efficacy, the trust.
Yeah.
Vaseline starts from the trust, right? It's one of the most trusted brands across the world. So everything we bring to the world has this coin, this seal of verification. Even these specific innovations, we tell that even before it reached the lab, they had been verified in the wild, right? But also in other segments, in other categories. Our world is really anchored in health beyond hype, when we bring proof over promises, proof over trends. And this is how we innovate and we build the brand
But
for
it's
the
also
future.
the same as it has always been for so many years, right? That the evidence, the reliability, the trustworthiness.
It's in our roots, right? We are the OG.
Yeah.
We are the skin obsessed brand. It's very interesting if you see the history of the brands and in our archives. Since the brand was born, there's an obsession about tangible proof. The creator of the brand, Eyebrow, the chemist, back in the 1870s, when he created Vaseline, he started selling Vaseline, failing miserably, but he didn't give up, and he took his cart, his horses, and he did a tour around the US to show the power of Vaseline, and he even burnt himself. The archives shows he used to burn himself to apply Vaseline to show the miraculous power of the jelly and the tangible proof.
Yes.
The verification is with us since the beginning.
Yeah.
And we are not abandoning that. That is part of our roots indeed. And it's our commitment with our communities.
What kind of assumptions do you think you've had to let go of about innovation? What do you think this has actually disproved for you?
The biggest belief, I think, that was reconsidered is that consistency builds brands. Relevance builds brands. Consistency without relevance is just repetition. And this is very important for a legacy brand to understand. And the second, I think, is really controls, reduces risks, which actually is proven to be quite the opposite, right? Controlling just increase the risk of irrelevance. And I think the biggest risk is really not participating in culture at all.
So I think there's an amazing sense of all of this being a bit full circle for you as well, going back to your roots, but exploring it in a different way and really expanding the brand from what it's always been into something really exciting. I'm sure there are hundreds of brands and people outside Unilever, within Unilever, who come to you and say, like, tell me some secrets, tell me what you've did. What do you think the conditions need to be for a brand to build participatory brand building? Because not everybody can do this. What are some of the principles you would live by?
I think one important one is to listen in a way that you give space for culture to intervene in your decisions. Because there are many brand developers out there defending the social listening, but entertaining themselves with what they listen without really opening the space for the listening to intervene in the decisions you make. I think this is something valuable that we have learned, and to be comfortable with the imperfection too. When you open the space to co-create, it doesn't feel always polished, but it feels real.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that is the most important thing for consumers, to understand there's a meaning. We are not dictating the meaning, but we are recognizing the meaning, and being meaningful is really our biggest achievement.
Amazing. What a fabulous note to finish on. Thank you so much, Nathalia.
Such an interesting interview. Thank you so much for coming in.
Thank you. Thank you. My pleasure.
I mean, Laura, brilliant. What a great interview. I was hanging on every word there. I was absolutely fascinated by what Nathalia was saying.
I'm definitely getting some T-shirts made up with some of the key quotes. They were absolutely excellent.
I mean, it's sort of challenging me slightly, thinking like, why aren't all brands doing this? I mean, it just makes sense. And we heard it from Fiona Hughes on a previous interview. We've heard it about Burger King with the campaign, like listening to what people were really using Burger King for. This social insight, approach to kind of gaining insight, but then playing it back to people it just seems like a win-win all round.
But it is challenging. And I think, the reason it's won awards is not everyone can do it. And I think the principle she had of, as she said, making space for culture and really like deep listening, actually understanding the behaviours in detail. What are people actually needing, rather than just saying, I'm going to jump on it with a like, or I'm going to repost it. That kind of consideredness, I would say, is actually quite challenging in the sea of content. And so to really sort of keep the consumer in mind and just identify that, yes, this social stuff is fascinating, but what's fascinating about it is the humans behind it, is really like the key differentiator and the reason that all of this innovation and the positioning has been so successful.
There will be critics out there that maybe at the end of like Vaseline Verified went, oh, well, it's all right for you because you've got a brand that's used, it's 150 years old and it's used for all these use cases, and it's a really easy idea. It's very easy to have ideas, when you haven't had them yourself. But the fact that they took that one step further to say, well, actually, now let's make some products based on some of these hacks, I think just shows like real bravery and like conviction in what they're actually doing. It's not just a campaign idea now. It's actually changing the way that they are going to market and changing the way that they're innovating.
I think for insights people, it's especially exciting because where it gets us out of is this idea of the role of insights is to validate this sort of top-down idea that's come from, a marketing PowerPoint, that actually insights are, their job is to uncover areas of growth potential and to kind of nurture the right way of developing that so that it amplifies itself.
Yeah.
It's a really fascinating inversion of the model. And to the point we've had with Nick Graham, it gives insight more of a seat at the table because it's actually showing the opportunity to drive value, both for the brand, for the consumer and for the bottom line.
Absolutely. I mean, and it's increasingly becoming the place where, in this sea of noise, that is where you're going to find the signal brilliant interview. Well done for sliding into the DMs and getting us a great interview.
You're very welcome.